So honored today to introduce one of my colleagues, friends, and one of the industry legends in cybersecurity. We were just chatting. I think we've known each other for about 25, 26 years. It's one of those crazy, I know we don't look that old. We shouldn't be that old, but we met in our 20s, for all credit due there. And it was one of those where you just sometimes get so busy, you just lose touch. And so we're just sort of reconnecting. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. My friends, I hope you know what time it is. It is time for Life of a CISO with your host, Dr. Eric Cole is in the house. And I am so honored today to introduce one of my colleagues, friends, and one of the industry legends in cybersecurity. We were just chatting. I think we've known each other for about 25, 26 years. It's one of those crazy, I know we don't look that old. We shouldn't be that old, but we met in our 20s, for all credit due there. And it was one of those where you just sometimes get so busy, you just lose touch. And so we're just sort of reconnecting. Great to see we're both doing healthy. Great to see Anton's doing amazing in the field. So Anton, welcome to the show and thanks for being here.
Sure. Thanks a lot for inviting me. But yes, some of the time frames does sound scary. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's one of those, I always sort of saying you're a legend. You've created a lot of critical courses, a lot of training in cybersecurity, but I never quite do it justice. So could you maybe give an overview of sort of your career, your focus, and what you're working on now?
Sure. So this is, given the length, and I'm not sure I want to comment on the legendary status. I think that's a little, my ego is big, but maybe it's not that big to be like,
okay. We'll give it a couple more years,
I'll leave it with that. Yes. So I'm just going to go in sort of like a reverse chronological order, but it's not because I want to do the resume, but because maybe some of the fun things I've been doing in my career are being done now. So these days I work for Google Cloud Office of the CISO, which is a really interesting organization inside Google Cloud. Our team likes to violently argue that we are not field CISOs, and we are not. The reason why we say that is because in most cases that I've seen elsewhere in the industry, field CISO is somebody who is essentially assistant sales. We're not. We are assistant clients. We help people who use Google Cloud to have a secure cloud experience, secure AI experience, secure other experiences. So this is very fun because it mixes up the research, and I'll get to research a little bit, advisory, writing, speaking, of course, running a podcast as a side job to this. I run a cloud security podcast, a podcast on cloud security called Cloud Security Podcast by Google. And there's a bit of a story why our name is so blah, but that's my current job. And I think that some of the more fun aspects of this is that sometimes we get to explain certain Google technologies and decisions to clients. And of course, I'm wearing a BeyondCorp, an old BeyondCorp hoodie. I think the logo is not visible, but here's a B, which of course was the first attempt to commercialize Google's approach to zero trust. When I joined Google in 2019, I got a laptop, right? And I opened the laptop, I turn it on, and there's no VPN. Right. And everybody sort of knows this. And of course, nobody bats an eye that there's no VPN. But obviously, for all the previous jobs I always had, when they give me a laptop, there's a VPN to connect to your company network. Google doesn't have that, and never not needed a VPN for many, many years, at this point, possibly a decade. So where I'm going with that is that some of the Google security tech really is quite superior, but it's also for our own use. So sometimes we end up presenting some of this to the outside world. Of course, some of you know Google Chronicle, now called SecOps, and a few other technologies, which came from our own internal use to become pretty impressive products. So some part of our job is to kind of explain some of this, how Google does something really cool in security to clients so they can benefit. Not just explain for entertainment, but explain so that they can reduce the risks, not just boast, not just express this certainty that we are doing well, but also that they can do better.
So yeah, I know you have a lot more to cover, but I have a few questions here. So
Sure.
What is the alternative then to a VPN that can still implement similar security?
Well, what the alternative to VPN? I mean, of course,
Or,
we don't.
or I guess you said in 2019 there wasn't a VPN. So did they implement a VPN since then, or what are they doing for security?
No. The remote access has been done on zero trust principles for possibly for
Okay.
10 years. There's a
Okay.
ZT, what the outside world would recognize as zero trust based system, which we use. And there's no VPN. It hasn't been in use here for many years, possibly decades. And it's
So can you
something that
talk a
many
little bit
people
about?
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about why the zero trust you don't need a VPN? Can you sort of focus a little bit on sort of what that is and how that works?
Sure, but it's probably I'm gonna point people to maybe a decade plus of papers that describe how it functions. But it's at this point the zero trust became a household name since John Kinderwag launched it back in 2010. So the point is that you can read up online how it works for us. The challenge is typically how to transition from a more perimeter based situation that normal companies have, where VPN gets to the perimeter. Sure, there's some internal segmentation, but not that much. And then remote access is basically VPN. Here it's not. Here it's remote access to applications and a few other things. But again, people sort of know by now, it's 2025, not 2010, how to do it. It's just that the popularity of this has been kind of growing slowly. I'll put it this way, and that's why this still kind of turns heads, even though it really shouldn't. It's not that new as a model, but it's one of those harder changes to make for many companies.
So why do you think that's the case? Because I'm with you. I mean, zero trust just makes so much sense. It's better security. It's one of those things where you get security and functionality. Why is it companies are so slow to adapt it?
So actually, you're right about security and functionality, because that's another realization I made in the early years of Google. Early years meaning within my 5-year time frame, is that some of the stuff that we built is actually more usable and more secure. And if you go outside, people will think, well, you have to sacrifice usability for security. And we're like, kind of yes for you, but like not really. And it's not a philosophical principle that you do. You can, if you, have the best engineers on the planet, have the system that's both more usable and more secure. But aside from that, the answer lies in my previous job, namely my 8 years at Gartner as an analyst for Gartner for Technical Professionals at GTP. And I left Gartner in 2019 to go to Google. And I was trying to write a blog that summarizes my experience at Gartner. And I think that there's one lesson I learned. I learned many lessons, but there's one lesson that came to me as like this big elephant in the room that just shows up. And the elephant is that IT inertia is the most powerful force in the universe. If you
Very well said.
ask people about whether they would be using mainframes in 2030s, people would laugh at you and then say yes. I mean, if I asked a tech company technologist, a tech company in the Bay Area, I wanted to make a joke about Windows 2003 in the closet, and I said, you probably don't have Windows 2003 in the closet somewhere. You may have Windows 2008. And the guy looked at me and said, maybe we do have Windows 2003 as well. And I'm like, what? No.
Yeah.
And he said,
It's crazy.
no comment. Yeah. So, and it's a companies with a rapid change. It's a technology company of some sort. I'm going to obscure details enough to not embarrass anybody. But then you go to a less techy company in a less techy region, and you may discover freaking Windows NT 4.0 that's almost as old as you and me. I think stay the same. And I don't, again, somebody had this question about PHP online and when people would stop using PHP. And it's like, well, the time to stop using PHP was early 2000s. The 2020s is like kind of 20 years too late. But since you're asking, I mean, I can, spout those jokes for quite some time. But the point is that IT doesn't change all that much at many companies. And a lot of things that seemingly undergoing rapid change really don't. And people still complain about, you go to RSA. And I went to RSA this year and I had this weird realization that if you are a security manager from 2005 that step into the time machine, go to RSA 2025, there would be enough of the brands and technologies you'd recognize. And that's just scary. I mean, I don't think they're flying back to 2005. I'm thinking flying forward from 2005. You'd have antivirus vendors selling antivirus. You'd have people selling firewall appliances. Some of them may be virtual, but you probably wouldn't see it immediately from their booth. Of course, there would be new things. I'm not saying it's all old. I'm just saying that the amount of old is just kind of scary large. I've been looking at some market data for some research project here, and I'm like, wait a second, these are the vendors who make a lot of money in cybersecurity, but these are firewall vendors and antivirus vendors. What's going on? What year is this? So this long rant is my answer as to why.
But they're AI enabled, man, so it's okay. As long as they're AI enabled, it's good, right?
They definitely got AI enabled in the years since, but I really hope it's not 20 years of progress. That's 20 years of progress is not, and for some of these vendors, it's not 20 years. It's actually more like 30 years of progress. Some of them have been around in 1995, 30 years ago, doing not the same things, but kind of things that maybe a security manager from 1995 would recognize as well, which to me is a little freaky. And you may say, dude, these are fundamentals. They're just doing things that are fundamentally correct. Decent argument, but it's also the inertia in IT. I think that things not changing is kind of a interesting sign. Now, another counter argument to say would be, Anton, you're a curmudgeon. You're too old. You spout stuff that
we're young, my friend. We're young.
But here's the thing. It's also based in data. You can look outside. You can look at sales. You can look at the vendors. It isn't some kind of opinion that stuff doesn't change. Stuff does change. The thing is that old has a staying power. It's not just tech debt. It's really the fact that old IT has staying power. And it's a really strong staying power. Whether people need to die, whether the tech need to die, I don't know. But replacing a SIM with a more modern one, replacing VPN with zero trust, replacing firewall appliances with a microsegmentation, for some people, these projects may take decades. And this is kind of scary. And I mean, look at migration to the cloud. Like, obviously, I work for a cloud provider, so I'm kind of biased and I'm supposed to be like super optimistic. Cloud is the way to go. And yes, cloud is the way to go, and I'm optimistic. But people struggle with cloud migration today, not in 2010, not in 2015. 2025 is when many companies struggle with cloud migration. It's supposed to be old news, no?
Yeah. So with a lot of that is, where's sort of the problem? Is it security needs to step up and push for more secure solutions? Because we all know that, not using outdated servers, using on-prem, all has security risks, and moving to the cloud has benefits. So is that where security needs to step up and do a better job, or does IT need to be replaced, or where's sort of the stumbling block or the obstacle?
So this is a really good question, and I may not have like the crisp, beautiful answer that you can immediately put into action. I think, but I will give you like a frameworky answer. So one thing that when in my return to my current job, when people talk about how Google does something in security, sometimes we explain a certain security technology, a certain security process that we practice, and people don't understand how can it work. And we say, well, it really does work very well. And they say, no, I don't see it. Like, I don't see how it would work. And when we explain that it works because IT here, which we of course don't call IT, but the technology stack here is very different, and it's very automated, and it's very modern. Well, more modern than elsewhere. I don't think Google is 25 years old at this point, so maybe very modern is not always the right answer. The point is, great security with near magical results in some areas relies on modernized IT. And I really wish that somebody would build a freaking AI-powered firewall appliance that would bring somebody with the 1990s network diagrams and network infrastructure to 2020s. But I don't think that exists. I think if you are in the 90s on the network, nothing you buy from technical security would bring you to 2020s. Moreover, it's actually a little worse. I've seen people with modern tech stack and 1990s process. That to me is an even bigger freak show, because in this case, they may run containers like they would run servers. I don't know. The whole thing is just mind-boggling to me, but it does exist. When people migrate to the tech stack, to modern tech stack, but they stay with old process. And well, in theory, you should just show up and tell them, hey guys, don't do it. And they'd be like, oh, you're right. Yes, we should modernize. But in reality, that's a difficult process for many. And even with modern tech stack, sometimes the process stays in the old world. I don't know really how to change it, except for gradual transformation discussions and workshops and evidence and benefits. And it's like, it's kind of very consultative, but also no magic in this kind of approach. It's just hard work.
I agree. And you mentioned RSA, and I was sort of there and attended some of the speeches, and it seemed like every speech and every vendor was AI.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
when I went up and talked to them and looked, I didn't actually see a whole lot of AI. It was sort of like signature detection on steroids. So I'm curious, was I wrong there, or what were you seeing? Like, did you really see a lot of true AI, or was AI just the buzzword?
So for me, it was kind of a slightly different problem. I did see people with Gen AI in their products. I've seen people with chatbots in their products. So I feel like the technology adoption is ongoing. But what I haven't seen enough is kind of robust, improved results. I think the quote from my blog is, I saw not much evidence of solid improved outcomes. So I don't think the AI is fake. I think that, AI is fake in some cases. I've seen vendors where just like they say AI in the booth, but not in the product. Sure. But exclude those. There are enough vendors with AI in the product, chatbots in the product, Gen AI. There are some vendors who reimagined products with AI from day one, like the so-called AI native products. They do exist. They did exist. They were at RSA. But to me, the missing part was, okay, so you build an AI native, pick on something, DLP. You have an AI native DLP. Your product launched in 2024. You had Gen AI from day one. How are you better? And they say, oh, we are better, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. Give me evidence. How are you better? Are you 10% faster? Are you 20% less false positives? Are you 30% more risk reduction for this tough use case? Show me data that you are better. That part, to me, was missing. AI is there, but the real world outcomes to me were not so easy to find. I'm going to hedge a little bit. Maybe I missed them. But I did speak with a few vendors, in specifically in the AI SOC area. They all show what they do. They all do use AI, but where's the real world benefit? I'm the customer.
That's a great point.
I had blah. Now I have AI powered blah. My life is better in here, here, and here. I don't want to put my Chronicle hat on. We did a couple of such case studies, but they were difficult to do. It is not something that I would randomly make up and say, oh yeah, you're going to save 28 minutes from each other triage. Random example. So it can be done, but you need to do it. Otherwise, sorry, but like, I don't trust you. I mean, you need to show me real world evidence of people benefiting from this tech. And some AI vendors think that it's blatantly obvious. It is not blatantly obvious in the real world. It's blatantly obvious in the demo. Click, 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 click. I can triage alerts in 5 seconds. In fact, AI agents would do it. Bam, fully automated. Now bring it to my company where to triage an alert, a human has to take certain steps and then pick up the phone and say, yo, John, who owns this server? I don't know. I think maybe this person on the 3rd floor knows. Okay, I'm going to call him up. Like that, your agent would not do. And you can say that shows up as bad IT. Yes. And your point is, your AI SOC should work at a company where IT is not so great. If you expect perfection, well, sorry, there ain't any. So that's where I am. My mind is not in AI is fake. AI is real. But they really need to go hard on how does it help me in my company? Not what it does, not how it works, not how it theoretically benefits people, how it would help me in my company.
Very well said, and I think that's an accurate way to look at it. Is because that's really a better way to summarize. I wasn't seeing a lot of benefits or enhancements
Yeah.
with the AI. You were still getting similar results. So very well said. And I know we talked before the show. You're not a CISO, but you work with a lot of them. What would be a lot of people listening here are security engineers that want to transition, they want to become CISOs. What would be advice for them on sort of what skills they need and what they need to do to break into the CISO role?
So I want to put a disclaimer first, and the disclaimer is really interesting. I've watched way too many social media debates on Twitter, on X, LinkedIn, in freaking bars at RSA, elsewhere at conferences, as to whether to be a good CISO, you need to be a technologist. I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. I have an opinion, but my opinion is just that. It's my opinion. It's not hard-earned research wisdom. It's not quote-unquote ex-Gartner analyst things, blah. It's not informed by Google. It's just my opinion. So I can share my opinion, but I have to explain that it's not like I've discovered the truth and the truth is X. No. Yep. So with this aside, and you can force me to disclose the opinion later, it's fine. But the point is that this to me is still a debate. Do you need to understand risk and business? Yes. Do you need to understand the limitations of IT? Yes. Do you need to understand the reality of security technologies? Yes. Do you need to talk to people who are your CEO's boss, which is the board? Unfortunately, the answer is also yes in some cases. So does it mean that you have to be a technologist first? Does it have to be, do you have to be a business person first? I don't know about the first business, but you will have to do all of that. And some of that you can learn, but some of it you should learn. I think that it is the weird and sort of uncanny balance between understanding the tech and its limits and understanding how business runs. This is probably really hot advice for 1995. This probably was really true in 1995, 2005, 2015, but it just happens to be true. It happens to be true now. Today, you just have to understand, what can Gen AI do? What can this other thing do? What are the cloud risks? What are the cloud benefits? How can your business do things better in the cloud? It is a tricky combo of tech, business, and risk. I don't have a Venn diagram. I think it's a really messed up Venn diagram. But you will be living in the world of both. And I don't think you can sell one short. I think that you do need technology, you do need business, you do need understanding of how organization functions, your organization, not theoretical organization. So does it mean that you have to be, what's this name of the SANS top tier certification that we had? SANS G certified, sorry. I forgot.
Security leadership. Yeah, the security leadership. I think SLC or
not
something.
that one. The one that they had in the past, which covered all the certs, and then you get one cert, which is like super cert, like
the GIAC Gold. GIAC Gold.
Yes, correct. So you may need to have an MBA and a top tier technical security cert, not to pick on SANS, and it's kind of that's where you are. It depends on an org, sure. Like there's just as I cringe when people say in a typical large enterprise, I'm like, stop. There's no such thing as a typical large enterprise.
A typical, you're right. No typical.
Yeah. In that sense, maybe a typical CISO is also not a thing. But it is this tech pillar and the business/organization pillar. If you don't have them, then you don't have a shot.
And just because you baited us and you said I could get it out of you, so what do we need to do to get your opinion on the CISO role?
I'll just tell you. I do think the CISO needs to understand technology pretty deeply, and it is, as I said, not based on any research. It's kind of my gut feel. It's not because I've seen. Okay, so maybe here's what my opinion is based on. Security leaders who are weak at business and strong in tech would fail. Security leaders who are strong at business and weak at tech would also fail. But my impression is that those who are weak at tech would fail worse. So this is the this is the fact base for why I think a CISO does need to be a technologist as well as understand business and org. But if you cut out the technical part, you will certainly fail. You would also fail if you cut the business part. But I think without the tech knowledge, you would fail worse. This is kind of where my mind is after doing this for a good number of years. I don't know if it's the truth. If you bring me up an example of an absolutely excellent world-class CISO who cannot spell IDS and cannot spell EDR and doesn't understand how Windows drivers are loaded, okay, maybe that's a silly one, I would believe you. I think there are exceptions. But I feel like the technical skills do form almost like a perfect balance with organizational and business skills. I'm sorry, that's kind of where I am. The answer is yes to both, but don't lose the tech pillar.
No, I'm similar, and I'd be curious on your opinion on this. I sort of tell people that, in my experience, sort of 3 to 5 years in cybersecurity, really understanding it, and then starting to branch into the business side gives you that good balance. Because I sort of find, people that have been in security engineers for 12 to 15 years can, but it's much harder because they're so used to the tech. So I'm curious on your feedback. You think 3 to 5 years is right? Too much? Too little?
I actually don't know. I don't have an immediate reaction to this. I think that if you read up one book or watch people do technology for a few minutes, you won't get technical background. So it's probably something that's measured in years of experience, but I don't know whether it's 3 or 10. No real insight on that. And no gut feel either.
And then
but
I know we talked a lot.
I would run away from people who say CISO does not have to be technical. From that advice, I would run away.
Yep, I'm with you. So I know we talked a lot about sort of some of the challenges of fixing old computers and things like that, but assuming you have the rare organization that sort of has the zero trust, they're doing the modern stuff, they're using Google, where do you see them going over the next 5 years? Like, where should security and CISO sort of focus on over the next 5 years in terms of massive changes? Do you think like quantum is going to be a big issue and they should focus on updating their crypto, or what are sort of the hot areas you see over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I want to give some of the framework answer first, and then give you like a more crisp answer. So a few weeks, I think actually a couple of months ago, we did a couple of podcasts. I'll find them for your show notes if you're curious. We were asking CISOs of a few organizations about how do they balance longer term risks with immediate priorities. It's almost like if you show up and say, but quantum, and I'd be like, but ransomware. Longer term issue is never going to win. But the problem is that you don't want a long term issue to always lose. So you want it to, sure. I mean, admittedly, if I am being attacked by ransomware today, I should focus on ransomware, not on quantum. But if it's every day in your life, then at some point it will bite you. So we got some pretty insightful answers in terms of how to balance longer term stuff with immediate priorities. But at the end of the episode, one of the guests joked that I said long term, and he said, long term, you do know for some organizations, CISOs, that's the end of the workday, right? And I'm like, ha, yes, I know, but that's not supposed to be like this, right? And there would be things coming over a horizon that you need to watch for. Today, I would probably say that longer term implications are connected to AI. I do talk to our teams who deal with quantum. We are doing work on changing some of the encryptions to post-quantum friendly and all that stuff. But I'm also seeing the reasons to do it. But to me, if I have to pick a medium to long-term implication to focus on, I think it would still be AI. Because it's a lot more uncertainty, a lot more rapid pace of change, a lot more curveballs, and also a lot more reminders that we are at the beginning of the journey, not at some kind of a amazing magical moment when everything is invented. No, it's kind of the opposite. So we will see surprises, and you will need to deal with them. So if you want a medium to longer term risk, it would be something to do with securing AI.
Awesome. So as we're getting to the end of the show, I always like to have my guests sort of have the parting words. So any final words of wisdom or any recommendations you'd make to people that want to be a CISO or currently a CISO?
I would say that my advice would apply to people who are switching from more modern, more cutting edge organizations to something more legacy. And I mean, there are those examples. And I would feel like don't ever underestimate the inertia in IT. Don't underestimate how some change is hard and how some change in security would depend on change in IT. I mean, in theory, Google can decide to build a tech stack from the chips down by hand, or by hand meaning not by hand literally, but on our own. And we have done it. But it's also not the advice we ever give to anybody. For most people, they would deal with traditional systems, traditional off-the-shelf stuff, and these things tend to stay. And of course, somebody would show up who secures IoT and ICS and SCADA, and they would say, Anton, stop making those 90s jokes. We're in the 70s. I mean, sure. But that's just another reminder that in many areas of IT and actually OT, as it comes to mind, the past is very strong. And the future is coming, but you need to be somehow in both. You can't be all containers and none of the mainframes, because the next org where you are may have both. They may have Gen AI, they may have obviously mobile system, they would have cloud, they would have servers, they would have physical servers, they would have mainframes, they would have, I don't know what, hopefully not novel netware, but I don't know. At this point, I'm not judging.
Awesome. That was some great advice. Anton, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Perfect. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So you're listening to Life of a CISO. We just had an amazing interview with Dr. Anton Chuvakin. Please join us next week for another great episode, and please re-listen to this one because there's tons of nuggets in here and great information. So once again, thanks for joining us and have an amazing week.